So if you are a fan of Berserk, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Attack on Titan, Ghost in the Shell, this video is for you. Today we are going to be talking about the potential investment side of collecting and speculating on Japanese manga. And before we go any further, we have to define what manga is. Because again, we're talking about a niche market here. I understand some of you, you're watching this video for the first time. You want to know what you're getting into if you decide to collect or speculate in this market. So let's begin with the basics. For those unaware, all is what manga is. It specifically refers to a Japanese style of graphic novels, meaning book-length comic books. While on the flip side of the coin, if you ever heard the term anime, anime refers to a genre of Japanese-style 2D animation, which is more focused on, dare I say this word, animated cartoons, television shows, and movies. A lot of Japanese anime is based on Japanese manga, just like in the United States. The popularity of comic book characters has spread to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to shows on Disney Plus, Netflix, and the like. And of course, to other popular culture like video games, graphic novels as well, and other forms of entertainment that we all enjoy. So there's a lot of people that have wanted me to do a video about this because people are now wondering, is Japanese manga going to be the next big thing in the collectibles trade? Is it ever going to be on par with the popularity of US or American comic books? Now, this is where we kind of got to get in my DeLorean time machine, and you got to understand what made comic books the investment market that they are today in the year 2025 was the perfect storm of several things. The first was, and we call these catalysts in the trade. If you don't know what a catalyst is, I covered this in earlier videos. It's a change in a market that changes the market going forward fundamentally for the better or worse. So if we look at third-party grading, in the year 2000, 2001, CGC came into the market. They said, you know what? We're going to start grading and encapsulating comic books. And it was a slow start. They had to get the dealers on board. They had to get the auction companies on board. Lo and behold, though, over the next few years, little by little, collectors started to flock to CGC graded comic books. And the second catalyst that really affected this market was the advent of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When Robert Downey Jr., for the very first time in 2008, 2009, he became Iron Man. And it was announced that Iron Man was going to launch a plethora of television shows, movies, the whole nine yards, based on this massive Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, it was also around this time that investors started to come into this market, because what does third-party grading do? Third-party grading, when done right, brings confidence into the overall marketplace. It brings buyers and sellers together, and as a result, that brings more money into the fold. So when you had auction houses get involved, after third-party grading became a thing, you had the big money interests get involved, and now you can see where this is going. Comic books became this massive investment-wide collecting category that still is to this very day, even though the market overall is off its highs, especially when comparing it to the COVID boom right around 2020 through 2022. The market has taken a downturn. But there's still a lot of comic books that sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. So what does this have to do with Japanese manga? Well, there's a lot of people that are wondering if this could happen in the world of US comic books. What's to say this can't be applied to Japanese manga? After all, most Japanese manga is in short supply. There is a collector market, not as large as comic books, but it is out there. The people love this stuff. The people flock to anime based on popular manga like Berserk or Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon or whatever we're talking about. So as a result, there is a multifaceted collector market for this stuff already in place. And I'm going to tell you, before we go any further here, there is some financial opportunity in this market, but at present time, it's not as much as you think. And that's where I'm getting at in this video. You see, the one thing that we got to understand is that American collectors are extremely different than that of Japanese collectors. If we get in my DeLorean time machine and we go back to the 1990s, when I started my eBay business, where I was buying and selling video games, and I started importing a lot of video games and systems from Japan. A lot of my contacts in Japan understood what I was doing simply because they got that a lot of people wanted to own these, now what we know them as, classic video games, and some of them do have a lot of collector value. This is true even in Japan. If you go to Japan and you go to stores like Super Potato, which is a massive vintage video game retailer that's like 5 levels, 5 floors of different games, and they're well known throughout the collector community. They do charge exorbitant prices because obviously of the popularity of vintage games. But overall, collecting video games is huge, not just in America, but also in Japan. The difference is Americans tend to flock more towards higher end factory sealed games that can be third party graded. And this is where we saw kind of a fault line emerge during the great WATA video game boom that took place right around 2020, 2021, 2022. Where a lot of my contacts in Japan, because they found this channel, they would reach out to me and they'd be like, Sean, you got to explain this to us. We don't understand why American audiences are going nuts for, say, a first North American printing of The Legend of Zelda in factory sealed condition, which premiered on the American Nintendo Entertainment System back in 1987, when The Legend of Zelda actually first premiered a couple of years earlier on the Famicom disk-based system in Japan. So why are American audiences willing to pay a premium for a game that really isn't the first release of that game? I mean, if you're really going after the origin of The Legend of Zelda, wouldn't you want to own a factory sealed, potentially graded copy of the Famicom disc version rather than the North American gold cartridge, which premiered several years later? I mean, I get it. The box art looks cool, but Sean, you got to explain this to us. Why are people paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for this item that technically isn't a first print? And here goes, we have the first problem. American audiences are different than Japanese audiences. I can give you another example here. And this is probably going to blow some of your minds. Some of you already know this. If you're into Pokemon cards, I collect a lot of first edition vintage holofoil Pokemon cards. And the one thing I can tell you when I go after these cards, what I'll do is I'll buy the American edition of the card in PSA 10 condition. And I'll also then go to the market and I'll buy the Japanese version of that same card, also in PSA 10 condition. And I can use this as an example. Those of you that collect vintage Pokemon cards, you probably know Charizard's one of my favorite Pokemon. So if I'm going to the market and I buy a first edition holofoil Blaine's Charizard in PSA 10 condition, in the open market today, you're going to pay $4,000 to $5,000 for that card. The Japanese counterpart to that card is only going to set you back between $400 to $600 for that same card. So here we have a disconnect. The American market values these same items more than the Japanese market. So now what we're attempting to do, if we speculate in Japanese manga, we're attempting to take these pieces from Japan, sell them in an open American market, and hope that they fetch more than what they sell for in Japan. Now, making this much more complex, we now have third-party grading that is opening up in this area. Case in point, Beckett Grading Services has already started grading Japanese manga. You can log on to their website. If you have a lot of these key pieces, these first appearances of these issues, you can send them to Beckett. They will encapsulate them. They will assign a grade, and they'll send it back to you. Now, it's only a matter of time, wink, wink, until companies like CGC or PSA get involved in this market. So this is why a lot of people are asking me, is this going to be the next big thing? I will tell you, there is going to be financial opportunity here. But the question that you got to ask, at what point in the future, and is it worth tying up money in this market? Now, if you're somebody that travels to Japan on a regular basis, or maybe you have contacts in Japan like I do, if you want to spend a couple of $1,000s on this market at present time, and you want to go after some of these key issues of Japanese manga, and you want them to either send them back to you, or better yet, you already go to Japan, you can go and buy them yourself, you can go and find them, and you can pretty much either send them to your home in the United States or Europe, wherever you live, and you can hold on to these items, and then potentially, if third-party grading takes off in this market, you could potentially profit. I have nothing against you doing that as long as you have a proper exit plan. And this is where I would tell you, don't pay too much of a premium for these items because this market may never materialize. I don't think Japanese manga will ever be on par with something like the United States American comic book marketplace. The reason why that market took off, again, the perceptions of Western collectors, how we view nostalgia, how we like to collect these items, how we go about investing in these items is entirely different than other cultures. This is why if you actually study the antiques and collectibles trade, you will see that primarily third-party grading is an American phenomenon. Even when we look at coins, when we look at stamps, when we look at other items that are third-party graded, the amount of business that a lot of these major third-party grading companies do is always in the United States. It's not in other countries. Now, over the last few years, due to media attention, due to high-profile auction companies, and the media reporting on those sales, third-party grading has expanded. For instance, NGC, PCGS, they're starting to grade coins from other countries. If we're talking currency, PMG, PCGS banknote, they're starting to grade notes from other countries. But those markets are not on par as of yet with the US market. So what I'm getting at here, most likely, even though Japanese manga, Japanese anime is at an all-time high when we look at popularity, there are some risks here where when we look at the next big thing in the collectibles market, yeah, it has a lot of strengths, but it also has a lot of weaknesses. Case in point, let's talk about CGC. CGC not only grades comic books. Most of you guys are familiar with CGC grading because you're aware they grade both comic books and video games. But they also grade movie lobby cards. They also grade posters. They also grade magazines. They also grade Dungeons and Dragons RPG guides. And at present time, if you were to come to me and say, hey, Sean, I'm investing in Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game guidebooks, I would tell you that's a very niche market. Even magazines, guys, outside of your Nintendo Power 1, outside of your Playboy issue 1, which featured Marilyn Monroe, magazine grading, magazine collecting overall is a very niche market. So what I'm telling you is, if you have contacts in Japan, if you go to Japan on a regular basis, and you're able to easily come across this stuff, and you're not overpaying for it, there is opportunity here. Make no mistake. But I would not tell you to bet the farm. Meaning, if you're a high net worth individual, let's say that you have a net worth of $500,000, $1 million, you're like me, you're at my level. If I wanted to go to Japan and I wanted to drop $10,000 on this market, it really wouldn't matter much to my overall net worth if this market went to the stratosphere or if this market crashed to the point where I couldn't even sell any of those titles for the $10,000 that I paid. So this is something that you yourself have to make a conscious decision. If you're going to get into this market, you have to be patient. You have to have a proper exit plan. And you need to understand that if you're counting on third-party grading from taking this market by storm, you need to realize that may never happen. We may get to a point where this market just stays completely niche. Again, I don't see it being anywhere near comparable to the US vintage comic book marketplace. And that's the major point that I want to get across in this video, because I have people reaching out thinking this is going to be the next big thing. The problem that we have at present time, I've said this before in other videos, it's pretty much grading companies and auction companies that pretty much set the tone for the entire antiques and collectibles trade. And it's going to be very interesting to see if a company like Heritage gets behind this and starts kind of priming the pump, advertising this market, advertising these pieces once more players start third-party grading these items, then we'll begin to have an idea of what this market is going to do. But if you also remember, a couple of years back, VHS grading was a big thing in the collectibles marketplace. And a lot of auction companies got behind that. And today in the year 2025, they're having problems getting that market off the ground. In the beginning, there was a big push where prices soared to the stratosphere. Again, this was primarily also due to the COVID boom, where everybody was stuck indoors, the government was giving everybody money. Today, we see how that turned out. That market still exists, but again, it's another niche market. So I'm just cautioning you guys out there that keep telling me or asking me, is this going to be the next big thing? The answer is twofold. Number one, there's opportunity here. It just depends on how you go about it and what your risk tolerance is. If you're somebody who's financially established, you already are diversified: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, real estate. You're already doing Pokemon. You're already doing comic books. Maybe you're into rare coins. Maybe you're into vintage toys. If you say to me, Sean, I just want to take a couple of grand and I want to play around in the Japanese manga market, can you give me some tips? The answer is yes, but I would tell you to use caution and use good judgment. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please let me know if you want to see me do more videos on the collectability, on the value of Japanese manga, or even if you want me to do more videos on anything anime related, whether it's the toys, the collectibles, the statues, whatever it is. I do have in-depth knowledge of these markets. I just don't put it out there on YouTube because my primary audience is more into Pokemon, comic books, rare coins, video games, and the like. So every time I do a video like this, I like to see what the YouTube algorithm is going to do with it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.